to clarify a few things about my gear setup. In my video showcasing my belt was fully loaded to show all the things it can hold, but also to show how modular it is and how easy it is to create different variations for what I'm up to. Hello fellow homesteaders and other possible gear geeks. Thank you to the commenter who called me a gear geek, because I am, and I love that term. Let's break down my belt. If I'm not going to practice with my katana, it comes off my belt. If I'm not going to be needing or using my silky nada, it comes off my belt. If I don't need my purse pouch because I'm not going anywhere, it comes off my belt and gets hung up with my other pouches. If I'm doing something where I'm not going to be practicing with my throwing knives, they come off the belt. I can even clip off my entire leg drop. And here I'm left with a decently bare bones gear setup. Maybe not exactly bare bones, because I do keep the tools that I would regularly use on the property on the belt. But what I'm left with is first aid, a little saw, light, my mini shovel, my multi-tool, my knife, communications, and water. And just because the handcuffs and the extra ammo, they just stay on the belt because they're kind of not in the way. But this is the base of my belt, and I add on what I want depending on what I'm doing for the day. Like I showed in the previous video, if I was going to go foraging or maybe working in the garden and harvesting stuff, I'd put on my foraging pouch. And if I was going to go work with my animals, like the goats, I would take my horn and hoof maintenance kit and put it on my belt. If I was going to be building stuff, I'd take my woodworking pouch and put it on my belt. And my hammer goes into my katana pouch. That was the whole point of my last video, to show that it was very modular and I can add and subtract whatever I want depending on the journey, excursion, or activity for the day. As well as there were some comments talking about my mobility. Yes, fully loaded, my mobility may be a little bit hindered. But as I expressed in the previous video, when we lived in Montana on our property, I used this belt hiking up and down our hill all the time. It was a very steep, hilly terrain that we had to hike in the rain, the snow, with snow gear, with snowshoes, and at the same time packing up things like groceries, laundry, animal feed. So I know when my belt is decently loaded, I am comfortable with carrying it, as well as knowing that with the belt I can pack a lot of extra weight. I've definitely done a lot of testing with this belt when it comes to mobility, carrying gear, and just the overall testing of the belt. I think the only thing I'd really have trouble with when it comes to even the simpler setup of the belt is like trying to slide on my side, which I think kind of is hard and hurts anyway. So I've put this belt to the test when it comes to mobility, as well as dealing with the weight. I am lucky because I have hips that pretty happily hold even the full gear setup pretty nicely. So this portion of more the bare bones belt would be the belt that I'm more so running around with when I am wearing it. It's not always set up with the katana and the silky nada and all the stuff, just when I want to use those items. Everyone's going to set up their belts differently. We all have different preferences. And I know that I can't carry around everything I might need all the time, but I try. My whole life, I've had this weird need to carry everything I might need with me at all times. Like I'm literally OCD about it, and it can be really annoying. But it has allowed me to test out not only the durability, strength, capability of my gear, but of myself. So I do know my limits of what I can handle when it comes to my gear. Being off grid so long and walking around the property and going to town or going to friends or doing other adventures like hiking and camping, I have figured out the things that I want on my belt. And depending on which of those activities I'm doing, what things I'm going to load onto the belt. And I super appreciate all the comments that had tips and recommendations for gear and tools, especially the shovel. I've been checking out all those things, and those are some things I definitely have to save up for, but I found some super cool stuff that once I do get them, I'm excited to switch things up a bit and share with you what I'm switching up. And as mentioned in the video, this belt is an extension of my pack, or my pack is an extension of my belt, whichever way. So the gear that is on my belt is most of the time on my pack. But if I'm not wanting to carry around my pack, I'm going to put those items on my belt. As well as in my head, I kind of have this aspect of what if I needed to drop my pack for whatever reason. Just some out-of-the-box examples would be maybe I fell into water, or I needed to run away from something, or maybe a bear ripped it off my back. I would like my belt to have at least a little bit of all the basics my pack has. And there are a couple of things that I do actually want to add to the base of the belt. Someone mentioned having more of a fire starter kit, which used to be on my belt up in Montana because needing something to start a fire is actually more important up in Montana than it is down here in Arizona. Down here I could fart in grass and start a fire. But I know lots of other ways besides matches and ferro rods to start a fire. But in a sense, to me, my belt is missing a lot because it's in my pack. And I really got to try hard to not try to put it all on my belt. Especially since I could take the belt off and sling it over my shoulder, and it's much lighter than a pack would be. But I must tell you, my pack is quite overloaded because I have outgrown my little pack as I have built up my gear set. So I have been searching around for a new pack. I've been looking at all the different places that were recommended to me, as well as other places that I have bought pouches from. And the tricky thing about finding a pack is finding one that has tons of molly webbing. And thank you to the commenters who corrected me that it is molly and not mole. Years ago when a friend gave me a molly pouch, they called it mole. And I never heard any different or was corrected until now. So it is molly and not mole, and thank you to those who corrected me. But finding a backpack with lots of molly webbing that looks like it will suit my needs has proven a little tricky. Some of them have a lot of molly in one spot and none on the other, but maybe I'll deal with that and just sew some webbing on. But since my little pack is overloaded, I am kind of deciding whether I want to wait for a new pack or just share the loadout of my overloaded little pack. Though it is a birthday wish of mine to get a new backpack by my birthday, I'm not totally sure if that's going to happen or not because it's coming up quick. And if you'd like to help me get a backpack for my birthday, you could send me a super thanks, or my Cash App is in the description. Because I can't believe how spendy backpacks are. Because that is one thing about my pack is, in a sense, it's kind of low budget. Some of these pouches have been more on the expensive side, as well as my littler backpacks have been not exactly cheap. But I've slowly gotten one pouch at a time and created my belt setup. And I've used it for many years. A lot of people don't really believe me that this is something that I use and wear, and that's okay. I know I use it, people who know me know I use it, and that's really all that matters to me. I've just really been waiting and wanting to share my gear with you all. But I do also want to say that if you're wondering why you haven't seen my belt in any of my previous videos, it's made a couple of little appearances, but you actually didn't see my belt is because I was keeping it out of my videos until I gave it its own video, so that I could really get into it and talk about it. So you will be seeing it in more videos. So whether I'm using this as a tool belt, a survival belt, an everyday carry belt, it's simply a belt that I use very frequently. This is simply a tool belt. It's very useful to me, it's very comfortable to me, and I definitely understand those of you who just thought it was ridiculous, or you just couldn't quite understand like why. To me it's why not? Why not have certain things on my belt because I like having them on my belt. Someone did say that some suspenders might be nice, so I'm actually kind of looking up some suspenders because that would be nice. I could totally overload it if I wanted to, and it wouldn't be as heavy and just a little nicer to carry. But there are improvements that I can always be making. But I've already made many improvements that make it suit my needs. And gear doesn't technically have to be super serious. I think the only truly serious thing that you should have is your first aid kit. And thank you to the commenter who gave me some really good first aid kit additions. There's a couple things I hadn't thought of yet, and I definitely want to add those in. And to me, getting gear, using gear, and figuring out what gear works for you is just the name of the game. You have to use it to know it to figure out if it works. And that's why I use this belt all the time, is to know it. And partially because it is kind of fun. There is that fun element to it, and I like to have fun with whatever I'm doing. That's why I like to have my katana. I think that covers everything that I kind of wanted to just kind of maybe go over or clarify about my belt. And I am excited to keep improving on it. And soon I'll share the loadout of my pack. So I'm gonna start signing off all my gear videos with peace out to the gear geeks.